Hey,
Okay.
Tiffany, how you doing? Okay, you don't have to mute. I can hear you.
Hey,
That's good.
how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Hey, let's go ahead and get started. Number one, thank you both, Katie, Adam, for having me. I want to do two things today. Number one is I want to bring value to you, and I want to do that to talk about the way that we think and how important of a dictator that is to the outcome. Okay. And then number two is I just want to share with you what bold pivot is again, in case you haven't made that choice. Are y'all cool if we do those two things? Yes? And
Yes.
since I can't always hear you, you can just shake your head and that'll be good for me. Okay? Perfect. All right. So let's jump in, number one, and let's talk about the way that we think and the impact that's going to have. And I'm going to share some things with you that I learned from Gary yesterday that I think will be valuable today. So just the question I said earlier, how many of you feel like you're working really hard right now? Most of us do, yes? And, you know, it's kind of like a marathon, yet the first mile of a marathon is really fun to run. Super easy, 1 mile. That's why marathons, they only take pictures in the beginning and in the end, because if they saw the pain all the way through, you would never run a marathon. And that's kind of what you're going to feel. And here's what I've been sharing with everybody across the country. Real estate is a localized, hyper localized business, which means your market is different from upstate New York. Okay. I'll just tell you, I did a Zoom call with upstate New York and they cannot sell homes right now. So that's a completely different market than what you're dealing with. But here's what I can tell you, that you are going to be touched by this shift. You might not feel it now, but you will be touched and impacted by it. So how can we really and truly find this gift within the shift? Now, regardless of why we're here, and it is horrific that people are losing their life, there is a gift inside every shift. A matter of fact, and you can write this down, the greatest amount of wealth in our country exchanges hands in shifting markets. Mm-hmm. The greatest amount of wealth in our country will exchange hands in shifting markets. So in a way, there's a gift in there. And the gift is that the mind share that you capture now will turn into market share later. And I say that and it sounds like, oh, mind share now, market share later. It sounds like, we're just saying some cool words. The reality of it, though, go back in 2007, Keller Williams was number 4 in the world in real estate. We went through the shifting market. We came out number 1. The market share and mind share that you take during a shift, you never give up. So I want you to write this down. May will be the defining month for 2020. May will be a defining month in 2020. And here's the reason why. And Gary said this just as plain as day yesterday. He says the rubber will meet the road come May. Because you're coming off March, and March didn't really get impacted. As a matter of fact, we saw March numbers kind of grow because people started moving closings up as quickly as they could. April, we're starting to see some drop. I look at company dollar all over the country, and I can tell you our market centers in South Texas are going to be about 50% of company dollar compared to 2019. Now, what that means as a market center is that if company dollar is down, agent production is down. Yes or no? Because
Yes.
That's exactly where it comes from. Does that make sense? And if I ask you as an agent, if you want to do something not to scare yourself, yet to get real and get right, is go look at the next 90 days and tell me what your pipeline has projected your GCI to be. How many closings do you have in the next 90 days? And then whatever number that is, I want you to subtract 30%. Now, if you need to throw up off screen, that's okay. That's the get real part. Okay? That's the get real part. The get right part is what actions are we going to take? So let's talk about the way that we think. So understand that mindset is simply this. It is a habitual way of thinking. It's a habitual way of thinking. I want you to think like this. Today, you're going to have 60,000 thoughts. 60,000 thoughts. Now, here's the thing. Most people had the same 60,000 thoughts yesterday, and they're going to have the same 60,000 thoughts tomorrow. And what you're thinking that got you to where you are at this moment will not get you through this shift. So you're going to have to, number one, think differently. You're going to have to think differently about your time. You're going to have to think differently about your energy. You're going to have to think differently about your outcome. You're going to have to think differently on why you're reaching out to people that you care about. We're going to have to think differently so that we do different during this time. Because make no mistake about it, the gift that's inside of this is received through action. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't happen. Now, here's what's interesting. What is it going to feel like? So write these two questions down. And I know I've asked you if you're on my last call with you guys to do this, and yet I don't know if there's two more powerful questions you can write down. What am I going to be remembered for during this time? What am I going to be remembered for during this time? And then the second thing is, what is my business going to look like coming out of this? What is my business going to look like coming out of this? Now, those are two simple questions. I mean, really simple questions. And yet, how many of us get up and have distractions throughout the day? Family in your house, Zoom calls, news, all of these things. You can't go anywhere. Need a haircut. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy things that right now. Here's the reality around that, though. When I get up in the morning, you might not be able to see it because of where it's at. I have a legal pad, and it's on my desk. And every day I open it up to a new page and I start my day. I take notes throughout the day, and then the next day I'll do it again. The next day I'll do it again. Next day I'll do it again. Every day for the last 4 weeks, I've written those two questions at the very top of my page. Because in the end, guys, what you decide to think and do today is the answer to those questions. So how do we truly bring clarity to the way that we think? Well, as we choose what we want to answer that day. And then we go think like that and take that action. So if you want to be remembered as somebody as caring during this time, somebody that reached out, then what must we do? We got to reach out. Matter of fact, Gary said this yesterday. Let me read this because this is super powerful. It's super simple, and yet it's super powerful. Gary said, what's the one thing agents should be doing right now? What's the one thing? Face-to-face with their database. Either over the phone, on video, whatever. You can contact somebody in your database today and use FORD, F-O-R-D, Family, Occupation, Recreations, and Dreams. You can say, oh, hey, Katie, listen, are you okay? How is your family? Is this impacting, your work? And they can say, oh my gosh, no, we're doing great. We're still rolling at work. You can call back the next day and get a completely different answer. This is not a one-time contact. These are not contacts about selling homes. This is about coming from here. As Gary says, head down, heart up. Service first, sell second. This is going to be a defining moment for your real estate business. It's a defining moment for your relationship with your database. Imagine this, and I get really into this. Imagine this. This all passes eventually, okay? You reach out to somebody that you haven't talked to during this, and you're talking about real estate. Now, what do you think they're going to be thinking? Are you calling because you care about them, or are you calling because you care about your business? This is the time that we make care calls, and you cannot make too many of them. Let me give you an example. How many of you are at home right now? Raise your hand. Awesome. How many of you have a phone near you? Perfect. So doesn't 8.7 billion people in our world right now are doing the same thing that you're doing. I'm going to share something with you, and to me, this should help you pick up the phone and reach out constantly. I had an agent that was on these calls, and she raised her hand and said, "Can I share something?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I called a client of mine who was a single lady, a little bit older." And she said, I called and said, "Hey, this is Scott, and I just wanted to reach out and tell me, how are you doing?" And you know what the lady said? She said, oh my God, thank you for calling. You're the first person I've talked to in 14 days. Now, a lot of times we think about ourselves, and this is not about us. The opportunity with your database in redefining that relationship where you create a moat so deep and so wide that no other shift, no other technology, and no other company can ever get through your moat is by having care calls now. You will redefine that relationship. You will create raving fans, and you will have clients that will fight to do business with you and refer business to you when there's business to be had. I go back to the simple thing Gary said in Millionaire Real Estate Agent. We're in the relationship business until they need a real estate agent. Now, that's a different way of thinking about lead generating through this, because we've all heard the word lead generation, yes or no? Yes. Like, do you know that lead generation is important for your business? If you had a tattoo that said lead generation, you could look at it every day. And yet, what's the difference between knowing something and taking action on it? And it's the way that we think about it. And if we're thinking differently about why we're contacting people during this time, if we understand that what we're remembered for from this moment is important, we're going to do that activity a little bit different. Does that make sense? Just shake your head if it does. And if it doesn't, still just shake your head yes. Awesome. Perfect. So go back to those two questions and understand that all they're there to do is to set your mind in the right place. Now, it's real important. We have to make a living. I mean, we have to put food on our table, pay our bills, provide experiences in our life, take care of the people around us. So we have a lot of whys. One thing that Gary talked about this week that I thought was really interesting, though, is when we say that we've got what we want to be remembered for, it's not just for our clients. I have to ask myself the question, what do I want my wife to remember about me during this time? What do I want my kids to remember about me at this time? What is my health? How am I going to remember what I did for my health during this time? What about my parents? What about the friends, my other real estate agents and OPs and team leaders that I know around the country? How are they going to remember me during this moment? That's a powerful question that digs into the why we are doing this. Does that make sense? And here's what's really cool. Question number 2 is answered through question number 1. Guys, Gary's, a lot of times, and again, calm me down if I need to calm down, okay? One of the things that I think we might be doing unconsciously is we're looking for ways to thrive through this. And Gary continues to say something. He wrote it in the Shift book. Our number 1 goal right now is to survive. Make no mistake about it. I don't care if you can fill it or not. 33 million people file for unemployment. Your business will be impacted. Now, I don't know if it's going to shut down like in some places in the country. I don't know if it's going to have a small dip. But you cannot have a global economic shutdown and not feel the effect eventually. And that's why we know May is going to be a defining month for us as agents. Not only for 2020, for 2021, and for the rest of our career. In 2008, 300 and something thousand agents left our industry during the last shift. Now, what's the difference between this shift and the last shift? There were other jobs in the last shift. There's not other jobs right now. You go drive around and tell me who's hiring. Does that make sense? Now, that's not fear speaking. That's getting real. So question number 1 leads into question number 2. If we're doing the number 1 from our heart authentically to our database, we are absolutely uncovering number 2. That's what your business, I can tell you the answer to what your business is going to look like once you get out of this by what you choose to do today. So if you choose to reach out and contact 40 people in your database and simply ask them how they're doing, is there anything that you need? Gary said one time in the last couple of weeks, he said, some people are afraid to ask that question because they don't know if they can fill the need. You might even have a need. But that's not what you're asking. You're not asking to fix their need. You're asking what they need. And by the way, if you can help them fill that need, do you think you're going to help fill your need? John Maxwell says, Jim Rohn says, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll automatically get what you want. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what's the biggest obstacle or a wall that most people right now say they're facing? Well, a lot of people are already starting to feel exhaustion. I mean, we've had Zoom calls for 4 weeks now. First week of Zoom calls, we had hundreds of people on Zoom calls. Now we're dwindling down because it's exhausting. It's exhausting to talk about the market all the time. It's exhausting to hear, are we opening up? Are we not opening up? What does that mean? And it's exhausting living in fear, because the number one fear is not anything that's real. It's the unknown. And right now we have no idea when any of this is going to happen. Am I right? So what do you think our clients are fearing? And let me ask you, does fear bring you energy or rob you of energy? It robs you. That's what I would tell you. It robs you of energy. So when we go back and we talk about things we control and things that we don't control, you have to understand why that's so important. Because you don't control the virus when the government, when things open up, when people buy or sell a home, you have zero control over that. It's like you don't control the weather. There are some things you control, though. How you think, what you say, how many times you say it, and where you're coming from when you say it. When you put the focus on the things we control, you keep the energy moving in the right direction. As soon as you put energy to something you don't control, you rob yourself of energy. You literally give it away. And this is going to be a marathon. And yet, you should be kind of excited about it, because you can redefine what your business is going to look like for the rest of your career based on making care calls. Your phone should feel as light as a feather. That's how fun these calls should be. So tell me, what are you taking away? And I know you're going to tell me you're going to take something away, yes? I'll wait. All you got to do is get yourself off mute and say it. I'm not looking at you, Tiffany.
My takeaways are definitely every day asking myself those two questions. I'd never thought about it like that, but it really puts your mindset in the right place.
Yeah. Well, what it does is what you realize immediately is that I get to answer the question today. Like I'm going to answer today what I'm going to be remembered for and what my business is going to look like. So what do I have to go do to answer it the way that I want it to be answered? See, that answer is not a random thing. It's a choice. I mean, that's what it is. It's a choice. I mean, you can choose to smile today. You can choose to give care calls today. You can. I mean, I'll just give you one example. There's an agent. She was asking, what can I do for my neighborhood? What can I do for my neighborhood? What can I do for my neighborhood? And so she came up with an idea. She went to, I think she said they have like 140 homes in their neighborhood, and they have a Facebook group, which most neighborhoods do now, have their own neighborhood Facebook group. So she went on the Facebook and she said, I don't know very many people in my neighborhood. And she said, I just invited them to a Zoom call. And I said, listen, if there's any questions that anyone has on real estate, the real estate market, or anything that I can help with, I'm going to do this Zoom call. The first week, she had 3 people show up out of 140. The third week on it, she had 33 people in her neighborhood on the Zoom call. Now, I think they have like cocktails while they do it, but she's not working to get to get their listings. She's working to provide value and give back to the people in her neighborhood. Here's what's interesting, though. Do you think she's capturing mind share when she does this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when this is over, that's where market share is going to come from. So it really is thinking differently about it. And those two questions, man, every day, to me, they take all the junk out of the way and provide one path of clarity. So what am I going to choose today? Am I going to choose people to remember me as the person who watched the most Netflix? You know, am I going to be the Tiger King too?
Oh, that would be a good series, though.
Oh, trust me, I've watched the 2 follow-up ones. Don't worry, I'm on that. Like if someone's giving me a Christmas gift, I want to meet that dude. I sort of like give me 1 hour with that crazy one. I want to hang out with him.
I got you some socks, Scott.
But again, though, we're making that choice by how we think and the action that we take. And again, they go together. You know, Gary said something. Let me see if I can find this. Gary said right now, we've got to change our vision. We've got to change our vision. And there's a difference between vision and a goal. A goal is a measurable outcome. My goal is to take 50 listings. That's a measurable outcome. Vision is, what does it look like on the way to that? And what does it feel like when it's accomplished? And he said this, and sometimes I go, okay, does he? But so he's been right a lot, okay? He said real estate will never look the same after this. It'll never look the same. And that's not a negative or a positive. It's just isn't going to look the same. Real estate now doesn't look the same as it did in 2007 before the last shift. Mm-hmm. So we got to reset that vision, not for 10 years, not for 1 year, for the next 30 days. What is it going to look like on that path? Because in the end, guys, goals and outcomes and all of that are just products. Your life is lived in the journey. And that's what the vision provides. I mean, you've heard the saying, without vision, people perish. Right. Well, without vision, our businesses perish. Without vision, our relationships perish. Without vision, our wealth doesn't grow. And I go back and remind us that the thinking that got us here will not get us through this. So we've got to change the way that we think. So we change the actions that we take, and it'll eventually change the results that you'll see. You can create the largest mind share and take the most market share at this moment. So if you're new to real estate, you haven't gone through a shift before, understand there is a huge gift in this. And that's what you're fighting for. Does that make sense?
That's exactly right. That's what I'm telling all the guys in Ignite right now. I'm like, the playing field is cleared. You have all the opportunity. And I'm in conversation with the top realtors in our market, and they're saying they're not taking new business. So you have even a greater opportunity. So,
well, and with that, Scott, you know, it goes back to, you know, you make choices and those choices make you. Choosing to reach out, that's a great idea. I mean, as far as your farm, if you've got a neighborhood, we all live somewhere, right? So picking that area, and, you know, perception is reality. So they don't know that you haven't sold a house, but they do know who is calling me right now while I'm on a Zoom call. They do know that when, hey, I've reached out to you, I've built this relationship, and their perception is one, you care, two, you're bringing market data, so you must be a market expert. This is a prime time. Just like Katie just said, the top 20% that we've interviewed and talked through, they say, hey, listen, you know, I'm just a little nervous about it. Well, we get that, but there's a safe way to conduct business and continue on with your life and build that pipeline. So when the business does show up and the opportunity presents itself, we've got it stacked back, and you guys have got the gas in the tank when it's ready to, you know, when the light turns green, we're ready to roll.
And Adam, that's the whole thing. I think we've got to be real clear. The message is survive to thrive. Right. I mean, you've got to survive this shift. Okay. And I'm not speaking for you, I hope, guys. You're going to feel the shift. You haven't felt it yet. I was on a Zoom call 2 days ago, and they're celebrating March's numbers, which is awesome. We should celebrate, but it's April the 20th. May is going to look a lot different than March. June is going to look a lot different than April. So I think that when I love what you said, but yeah, the work you do now, I use the example, and you're from Alabama, so you'll get this. Most people around the country don't. I grew up in Alabama. We used to go mudding, like drive our Jeeps in mud, and it's like being stuck in the mud. That's what lead generating right now is going to feel like. That you're going to be contacting lots of people, and it's like you're just like, ah. If you stop though, you'll sink. If you just keep going, just like Adam says, when the market comes back, you will literally catapult your business forward. But make no mistake, and I love what Gary said, that it is going to be a monotonous, boring activity day in, day out. And the people that choose to lead generate on a daily basis through this, coming from care, because people are asking 3 questions before they choose you. Can you help me? Do you care? And can I can I trust you? And that's what care calls do. It answers 2 of those 3. And the third one, you have a real estate license, so you're more knowledgeable than that person already.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Absolutely.
Perfect. So what else can I help you with? What questions? Do you want me to hit on Bold Pivot, or are we?
Please, just
okay.
If you'll take just a minute to hit on Bold Pivot again. We currently have 8 people signed up.
Okay, so hey, Bold Pivot, this is what's really cool about what we're doing. We were going to go out and do Bold across the country. Coronavirus came. So we had to cancel flights, venues, everything. We couldn't bring groups of people together. Gary said that Bold is the most disruptive training in the world. It's a coaching conditioning course. And our agents need it now more than ever. And we held it till May for a purpose, because we knew that the pain of this isn't going to be felt till then. And what happens normally when pain sets in, what do most people do? They slow down. They get cautious. An ostrich sticks its head in the sand. So Gary said, let's get it ready for May. So we wrote Bold Pivot. It's 2 days a week. It's going to be a live stream. And we're going to help you with the message of the moment, the mindset for the moment, the skills that you need at this moment. It is written for this moment. And then, of course, on Wednesdays and Fridays, you have 2 days of Coaches Corners, where you can also come into a Zoom and ask questions and learn more and go in depth of the things that you just learned. I look at it like this. We have 4 weeks for $99 where you're getting 8 hours a week of the best coaching from the best coaches in the country to move your business forward during this time. And here's what I love about it. Imagine going somewhere and getting your mindset, getting skill, getting scripts for the moment. And by the way, so when we say scripts for the morning, it's how do you use social media at this time to get more impact? How are we using text messaging? How are we continue to stay in contact with our database in creative ways to continue to add value and come from care? So imagine 2 hours a day of that, and then you go implement for 22 hours. And then you come back, you get 2 hours of it, you go implement. Come back, you get 2 hours, you go implement. Come back, you get 2 hours, you go implement. Now, here's what I love about what we're doing, and I'm so glad we're doing it for $99, and it's 4 weeks, and it's going to be in the month that is going to define us, is if you don't have a plan, what are you going to do? Because doing what you've been doing isn't going to get you where you need to be. Have you ever seen that guy who ran the marathon in less than 2 hours? Anybody see a video of that guy doing that? Yes, no? No? Well, this guy ran a less than 2 hour marathon. Do you know that's a little over a 4-minute mile for 26 miles? Has never been done before. Here's what's interesting. He's attempted it a lot and failed. When he succeeded, they recorded, it was on TV. They had a group of people that came out and ran with him and set the pace. Every 3 or 4 miles, they dropped off, another group came in. For 26 miles, he beat it. And to me, in a way, Bold Pivot is that. Bold Pivot, we've got 16,500 people registered right now. We'll end up at about 25,000 agents going through this. That's going to be the pace setter. You can choose to jump in it, or you can choose to run alone. Which one do you think is going to get you closer to your goals the quickest? Does that help, Katie?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah, and it's $99.
And you don't have to drive.
You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to get dressed.
That's true.
Please get dressed.
Or leave your camera off.
Yeah. Was there any questions before I jump off? I don't want to waste your time. It's just 12:30. But if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. And I appreciate everybody being on there. None at all?
Do you have anything for Scott?
Scott, man, we appreciate your time, brother. This is awesome. And guys, he's one of the #1 coaches in Bold across the nation. So
you're so sweet.
we appreciate you. Well, hey, sincerely, man, you've changed our lives. I'm speaking on behalf of my 2 partners, business partners. He is one of our go-to guys always for anything that comes up in our business, and we've leaned a lot on him. So we appreciate you, man.
Hey, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a great week. Thank you so much, Katie. Y'all take care.
Bye, Scott.
Bye, guys. Thank y'all.
All right, guys, hang on for just a second. Alia, are you with us? Alia. Uh-oh. She may have had
Video.
to jump off.
She's in the dark.
I don't see her.
She is in the Hollywood Squares to the right.
You're breaking up.
Sorry, I've got devices right now that have all been on Zoom calls today, and I think my side.
All right.
Can't,